and welcome to Springfield Career Insights. Tonight, we confront a rise in tension in the architecture of marriage when economic power distorts emotional balance. In many homes, the traditional notion of the husband as the head of the household is being challenged, not by dialogue, but by domination. We ask, what happens when financial success becomes a weapon? When women who earn more reject shared leadership, and some husbands suffer in silence under emotional and economic abuse. We are joined by His Excellency Dr. Godfrey Gandawa, President of Springfield Research University, legal educator, and civic reformist. His work reframes marriage as a covenant of dignity, not a contest of control. Welcome, President. Your voice brings both courage and clarity.
Thank you, advocates. Marriage must never be a battleground for supremacy. Breadwinning is not a license to bullying. And leadership must never be measured by income alone. When power replaces partnership, the home becomes a hostage chamber. We must speak for the silenced and restore the covenant of mutual respect.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, in many homes today, who earns more seems to decide more. Has economic power replaced emotional partnership in modern marriages?
Thank you, advocate. When income becomes influence, intimacy becomes negotiable, and the marriage becomes a contract, not a covenant. Because when earning dictates authority, love is no longer mutual. It is now managerial. Economic power should support the home, not supervise it. Yet in many households, the higher earner becomes the louder voice. Decisions are no longer shared, they are delegated. Partnership becomes performance, and emotional equity is traded for financial leverage. But emotional partnership is not a luxury. It is the foundation. It is the right to be heard, the freedom to disagree, the dignity to co-lead, even when one earns less. Modern marriages must resist the myth that money equals wisdom, because a salary cannot substitute for empathy, and a paycheck cannot parent, and financial dominance cannot nurture trust. So yes, advocate, economic power has often replaced emotional partnership, but it must not remain so. We must recalibrate the home as a space of shared sovereignty, where decisions are co-authored, where love is not ranked, and where dignity is not prized. Let the marriage be a duet, not a hierarchy. Let emotional partnership return, not as sentiment, but as structure.
Thank you, Professor. Traditionally, the husband was seen as the head of the household. What happens when that leadership is challenged, not by dialogue, but by domination?
Thank you, advocate. Headship without humility becomes hierarchy. And when it is challenged not by conversation, but by control, the home ceases to be a covenant. It becomes a contest. Domination is not leadership, it is erosion. It erodes trust, erases partnership, and replaces mutuality with fear. When leadership is defended through domination, the marriage becomes a monarchy. Decisions are no longer shared, they are decreed. Disagreement becomes disobedience, and love becomes labor. Servant becomes labor. Tradition must not be used to sanctify control. Because headship, if it is to mean anything, must model service, not supremacy. It must invite dialogue, not demand silence. It must protect dignity, not punish difference. So, what happens when headship is challenged by domination? The household fractures, the emotional climate freezes, and the very structure meant to nature becomes a site of harm. Let us redefine headship, not as rank, but as responsibility, not as entitlement, but as empathy, not as dominance, but as dialogue. Because a home is not built by who leads, it is built by how, and domination is never a blueprint.
Thank you, Professor. We've seen cases where women who earn more refuse to submit to shared leadership. Is this empowerment or a new form of abuse?
Empowerment is not dominance, it is dignity. And when economic ascent becomes emotional control, we must ask not just what she earns, but how she leads. Refusing shared leadership is not always abuse, but when it silences, belittles, and punishes, it crosses the threshold. Because abuse is not gendered, it is patterned. It is the erosion of mutuality, the weaponization of power, the denial of partnership. Empowerment must elevate both voices, not eclipse one. It must model sovereignty, not supremacy. It must say, I earn more, but we decide together. Not, I earn more, so I decide alone. When financial power becomes relational punishment, we must name it, not excuse it. Because emotional neglect wrapped in feminist language is still neglect. And control dressed as confidence is still control. So, what is the difference? Empowerment listens, abuse silences. Empowerment invites, abuse imposes. Empowerment builds, abuse breaks. Let us not confuse liberation with domination. Let us not replace one form of erasure with another. Let us build homes where leadership is shared, where earning does not eclipse empathy, and where power is not a weapon, but a responsibility.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, what do we say to husbands who suffer in silence, emotionally bullied, financially sidelined, yet afraid to speak?
Thank you, Advocate. We say, your silence is not weakness, it is warning. Warning that the home has become a hierarchy. Warning that the partnership has been replaced by punishment. Warning that masculinity, when wounded, is often invisible. Emotional bullying is not gendered, it is patterned. It is the ridicule that hides in routine, the sarcasm that stings in silence, the decisions made without dialogue, the love withheld as leverage. Financial sidelining is not a strategy, it is erasure. It is the budget that excludes, the lifestyle that shames, the power that punishes contribution instead of honoring presence. To husbands who suffer in silence, we must say, you are not less because you earn less. You are not weak because you fail. You are not alone because you speak. We must build spaces where male pain is not mocked, where vulnerability is not betrayal, and where dignity is not reversed and reserved for the dominant. Let the husband speak, not to reclaim control, but to restore balance. Let him name the harm, not to retaliate, but to recalibrate. Let him be heard, not as a threat, but as a partner. Because silence is not peace, it is pressure. And every pressured heart deserves release, deserves recognition, and deserves repair.
Thank you, Professor. Is the cultural script of male leadership still relevant, or has it been rewritten by economic realities?
Thank you, Advocate. Cultural scripts do not vanish. Is it? They evolve. But when tradition meets transaction, leadership becomes less about legacy and more about leverage. So, male leadership, once framed as duty, has often been reduced to income. The father who led through provision now competes with the partner who earns more. The husband who once decided now defers or dominates. And the home becomes a negotiation between heritage and hierarchy. Economic realities have not rewritten leadership. They have exposed its assumptions. They have asked, was leadership ever about wisdom or just wages? Was headship ever about service or just status? Was partnership ever mutual or merely ceremonial? So, true leadership is not gendered, it is generative. It listens before it leads. It shares before it steers. It adapts without apology. So, is the cultural script still relevant? Only if it is rewritten. Rewritten to honor emotional intelligence, to elevate shared decision making, to dignify contribution beyond currents. Because leadership in the home must no longer be inherited, it must be earned. Not through income, but through integrity. Not through tradition, but through trust. Let the script evolve. Let the roles recalibrate. Let the household become a space where leadership is not claimed, but cultivated.
Thank you, Professor. President, in today's age, what defines love and marriage? Shared purpose or financial power? Has earning more become the compass that guides commitment?
Thank you, Advocate. Love was once the language of presence. Now, it risks becoming the currency of provision. Marriage, once anchored in shared purpose, now drifts in the tide of financial comparison. And commitment, once a covenant, now negotiates its terms through income. But financial power must never replace emotional partnership, because money can build a house, but only purpose can make it a home. You can have a house, but which is not a home. Money can fund a lifestyle, but only love can sustain a life. Money can command decisions, but only shared vision can guide destiny. When earning becomes the compass, commitment becomes conditional. The one who earns more may feel entitled to lead. The one who earns less may feel unqualified to speak. And the marriage then becomes a transaction, not a transformation. Shared purpose is not romantic, it is structural. It is the rhythm of co-authorship, the dignity of mutual respect, the courage to lead together, even when the bank balances differ. So, what defines love and marriage today? Not who earns more, but who listens more. Not who pays the bills, but who pays attention. Not who controls the future, but who co-creates it. Let financial power serve the partnership, not steer it. Let shared purpose return, not as nostalgia, but as necessity. Because love is not measured by income. It is measured by integrity.
Thank you, Professor. Let's take a break and listen to a wedding song, Two Names, One Nation.
We came with two names, but left with one nation. This is not a romance, it is a republic, founded on vows, governed by grace. We stood in the square of the sacred and sworn, where the flags of our families were folded and worn. You spoke like a sunrise, I answered like flame, and the anthem began with your name and my name. Two names, one nation, two hearts, one hymn. We rise as one in Springfield's rhythm. Shavuma, Sitandana. We are sovereign. We are sovereign. Lena kusio inzaba yetfu kupela kuyimpilo yelive. Sivumelane ngekuthi luthando lube ngumthetho sakalef lelisha yakuthi sibe munye. We danced where the statutes were carved in the stone, where the echoes of elders became our own. You wore the robe, I bore the ring, and Springfield sang, let the covenant begin. Two names, one nation, two hearts, one hymn. We rise as one in Springfield's rhythm. Shavuma, Sitandana. We are sovereign, we are son. Let the bells ring not for union, but for uprising. Let the robes flow not for fashion, but for founding. This is Springfield's decree. Marriage is nationhood, and love is law.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. President, why is it dangerous to define power in marriage by income? When earning more begins to override emotional partnership, shared leadership, and relational dignity.
Thank you, Advocate. It is dangerous, Advocate, because fortune is not fixed. Is it? And I want to repeat this. It is dangerous because fortune is not fixed. The one who boasts today may break tomorrow. The woman who earns more today may face misfortune next year. The husband who was sidelined may rise after being ridiculed. And if power was prized, then dignity was never shared. It is dangerous, advocate, because it makes love conditional. If I fall ill, must she live? If I lose my job, must she punish me? If I earn less, must I speak less? This is not partnership. This is performance. Real marriage was never meant to be a salary scale. It was meant to be a sanctuary where leadership is shared, not sold, where presence is valued, not prized, where dignity is constant, even when income is not. When power is defined by earnings, the marriage becomes a market. And when the market crashes, so does the respect. But love must not be traded like stock. It must be anchored in purpose, not prosperity. So yes, advocate, it is dangerous. Because circumstances change. Because fortune shifts. Because real love must survive both abundance and adversity. Let us redefine power, not by income, but by integrity. Let us restore marriage, not as a hierarchy, but as a covenant.
Thank you, Professor. President, was it always like this? Or when did we begin to define headship in marriage by who earns more rather than by shared purpose and relational wisdom?
Thank you, advocate. It was never like this. Not in our homes, not in our heritage, not in the architecture of African marriage. During the colonial era, women were not workers. They were homemakers. They had no formal employment, no identification documents, no access to economic platforms. Yet they were not powerless. They were our pillars. They were pillars of the home. They respected fatherhood, not because they were weak, but because their home was sacred. Then came the shift. Men, in good faith, sought to empower their wives. They opened doors to education, employment, and independence. But in doing so, they forgot to reinforce the foundation. Empowerment without mutual respect became erosion, and the home, once a covenant, became a contest. Let us be clear, empowering women is not the problem. It is necessary. It is noble. It is overdue. But when empowerment becomes arrogance, when earning more becomes a weapon, when headship is mocked instead of shared, then womanhood itself is misrepresented. True empowerment does not destroy the home, it dignifies it. It does not silence the husband, it strengthens the partnership. It does not rewrite culture, it refines it. So, you ask, when did it change? It changed when income replaced intimacy, when salaries replaced shared sovereignty, when respect became conditional on contribution. Let us return not to oppression, but to order. Let empowered women lead with humility. Let African homes model mutual respect. Let headship be earned through wisdom, not wages. Because in our culture, dignity is not bought, it is built. And marriage is not a market, it is a moral covenant.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, are there women who earn more and still honor their husbands in the sanctity of marriage? Or has the financial ascent begun to erode relational rhythms?
Thank you, Advocate. Yes, they exist. And they are the quiet architects of dignity. And just a piece of advice, if you get married, I would also expect you to do the same. To be one of those that exist. You can earn more, but you must honor your husband. So, yes, they exist. And they are the quiet architects of dignity. Women who earn more, yet still honor the covenant. Women who rise in fortune, yet remain rooted in respect. Women who understand that empowerment is not erasure. Women who, in rising, lift their husbands too, because partnership is not threatened by prosperity. But they are becoming rare because the culture climate has shifted. Today, earning more is often mistaken for leading alone. Must I repeat? They are becoming rare, which is a problem. Today, earning more is often mistaken for leading alone. Let us be clear. It was never like this. In the colonial era, women were not age earners. They had no ideas, no formal employment, no economic leverage. Yet they were respected, not because they earned, but because they nurtured, partnered, and preserved the sanctity of the home. Then came Beijing. Necessary, noble, overdue. Men opened doors for their wives to rise, but in doing so, some forgot to reinforce the foundation. And some women, mistaking empowerment for entitlement, began to mock the very dignity they were meant to embody. True womanhood is not measured by income, it is measured by integrity. To earn more is a blessing. To honor your husband while doing so is wisdom. To preserve the sanctity of marriage is strength. So, yes, Advocate, they are women who earn more and still honor the home. But when financial power becomes relational punishment, when respect is withdrawn because income has increased, then womanhood is not empowered, it is distorted. Let us raise women who rise in fortune, but remain faithful to the covenant. Let mutual respect remain the rhythm of African marriage, because dignity is not earned, it is upheld.
Thank you, Professor. When economic imbalance leads to emotional breakdown, can love survive the fallout? Is restoration possible, or does power permanently fracture partnership?
Yeah, thank you, Advocate. Love can survive, but only if dignity is restored. Because emotional breakdown is not just a feeling, you see, it is a fracture. And when that fracture is caused by economic imbalance, the repair must be structural, not sentimental. Power, when misused, does not just dominate, it divides. The one who earns more may begin to lead alone, or even get new friends. The one who earns less may begin to shrink in silence, and the home becomes a hierarchy, not a haven. But restoration is possible if we recalibrate the compass, if we stop measuring worth by income, if we stop punishing vulnerability, if we stop mistaking financial power for relational wisdom. Because fortune changes. Today's provider may become tomorrow's patient. Today's sidelined partner may rise in unexpected strength. And if love was prized, then it cannot survive the market crash. So, true partnership is not built on balance sheet. It is built on balance. Balance of respect, balance of voice, and balance of presence. So yes, love can survive the fallout, but only if both partners are willing to rebuild, not by reclaiming control, but by restoring the covenant. Let power be redefined. Let dignity be restored. Let the home become a place where imbalance does not mean injustice, and where love is not lost when income shifts. Because real love is not fragile, it is formed, not in prosperity, but in perseverance.
Thank you, Professor. Let's take a break and listen to your wedding song, Vows in the Wind.
Some vows are spoken, others are carried by wind, by memory, by time. This is Springfield's decree. Love is not just declared, it is remembered. I wrote your name in the wind, and the wind rolled back with every vow I forgot to say, but always meant in silence, in song, in soul. Vows in the wind, vows in the wind, names in the sky. Yakutanda, we are not forgotten, we are forever. Ibone lutsan volwako emoyeni, ngizwe livi lako emtimbeni wami. Yavuma kuti lutsando lethulu withami, ishona lapo singa kulumi. We danced where the echoes refused to fade, where the wind carried vows we never made. You spoke like a memory, I answered like flame, and Springfield sang, we are sovereign by name. Vows in the wind, names in the sky. Yakutanda, you're not forgotten, we are forever. Ibona lutsan volwako emoyeni. Let the wind carry not our words, but our witness. Let the silence speak not of absence, but of eternity. This is Springfield's decree. Love is remembered, and vows are sovereign.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. What role should faith institutions play when biblical headship is weaponized to justify control? or rejected to justify rebellion.
Thank you, Advocate. So faith institutions must become custodians of covenant, not curators of control. Because biblical headship was never a license to dominate, nor was it a loophole to rebel. It was a call to lead with love, to serve with sacrifice, and to govern with grace. But today, headship is misquoted to justify tyranny, where some men use scripture to silence, to suppress, to punish. And rebellion is misbranded as liberation, where some women reject order, mock partnership, and redefine submission as weakness. This is not theology. It is distortion. And faith institutions must intervene not with condemnation, but with correction, not with ritual, but with revelation. They must teach that headship is not about control, it is about covering. To be the head is to be the shield. To be the leader is to be the servant. To be the husband is to be the steward of peace. They must also teach that submission is not silence, it is synergy. It is the rhythm of mutual respect, the architecture of shared purpose, the dignity of co-leadership. When headship is weaponized, the home becomes a battlefield. When rebellion is glorified, the covenant collapses. And when faith institutions remain silent, they become complicity in the erosion of sacred order. So, what is their role? To restore biblical clarity, to defend relational dignity, to model homes where leadership is not abused and submission is not ridiculed. Because faith must not just preach love. It must protect it. And headship must not just be quoted. It must be embodied.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, can male-targeted abuse be prosecuted? Or does our legal framework still treat male suffering as invisible, improbable, or unworthy of protection?
Thank you, Advocate. Yes. Male suffering is real, but the law often treats it as rhetorical. It's a challenge that I seriously face and see, which needs reform. Because when a man cries, the system asks for proof. When a man is bruised, the system asks for context. And when a man is broken, the system asks if he provoked it. The architecture doesn't believe that men are victims. Yes, male-targeted abuse can be prosecuted, but rarely is. Not because the law forbids it, but because the culture dismisses it. Because masculinity is misdefined as invulnerability, and vulnerability in men is misjudged as weakness or deceit. Our legal framework is still haunted by stereotypes. It assumes men are always the aggressors. It assumes women are always the victims. It struggles to process a man who is both strong and suffering. This is a serious challenge. This is not justice. It is gendered blindness. Because abuse is not gendered. It is violent. And protection must not be selective. It must be sovereign. Faith institutions, civic educators, and legal reformers must intervene. They must teach that dignity is not male or female, it is human. They must rewrite statutes that presume guilty by gender. And they must create safe spaces where male pain is not mocked, but medically, emotionally, and legally addressed. Because when male suffering is treated as improbable, the abuser is empowered, the victim is silenced, and the law becomes complicit. Let us recalibrate. Let us prosecute abuse, not by profile, but by proof. Let us protect men, not because they are weak, but because they are worthy. Because justice must not be gendered. It must be just.
Thank you, Professor. What civic message do we send when we ignore the suffering of husbands simply because they are men?
Thank you, Advocate. We send the message that dignity is gendered and justice is selective. That pain in men is less urgent. That suffering in husbands is less believable. And that protection is a privilege, not a right. We teach our sons that silence is strength, even when it breaks them. We teach our husbands that vulnerability is weakness, even when it serves them. And we teach our institution that male pain is invisible, even when it is undeniable. This is not civic maturity. It is moral negligence. Because when a man is abused, mocked, or emotionally abandoned, and the system responds with laughter, suspicion, or delay, we are not just failing him. We are failing the covenant of care. Ignoring male suffering sends a dangerous signal that masculinity must be stoic, even when it is shattered. That husbands must endure, even when they are endangered. And that justice must wait if the victim is male. But civic dignity must be universal. Protection must not depend on gender. Compassion must not be rationed by stereotype, and justice must not be blind to male tears. When we ignore the suffering of husbands, we erode the moral fabric of the home. We empower abusers, we silence victims, and we teach the next generation that manhood means martyrdom. No. Let us recalibrate. Let civic education teach that pain has no gender. Let legal frameworks protect all who suffer. And let society honor husbands, not just when they provide, but when they are in pain. Because a just society does not ignore suffering. It responds to it, regardless of who bleeds.
Wow, this is amazing. Let's take a commercial break and stay tuned.
At Springfield Research University, we don't teach to pass exams, we encode futures. Grounded in Education 6.0 and powered by STEMA, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine and automation, we deliver modular, sovereign learning across undergraduate, master's and doctoral programs. Explore our prospectus, where every curriculum is designed to STEMatize every discipline, dignify local authorship, and credential transformative knowledge. Be STEMatized, be sovereign. Here, knowledge is authored, not borrowed.
Curriculum is credentialed, not copied. Every graduate becomes an architect of transformation. With 2 annual intakes, March and September, the path to innovation is always open. From the logic of automation to the soul of indigenous intelligence, SRU is where tomorrow is designed. Springfield isn't just a university, it's an epicenter of epistemic dignity. Join the movement. Study where learning governs itself. Springfield Research University, the globe is here. Where are you?
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. Is equality being misunderstood as entitlement? And how do we restore balance without betraying progress?
Thank you, Advocate. Equality was meant to dignify, not to dominate. It was meant to level the field, not to tilt it in reverse. You see? Because I'm sure if people knew that we were going to tilt it in reverse, they were going to resist. But today, equality is often misunderstood as entitlement, where rights are weaponized, roles are ridiculed, and respect is rationed. We see it in homes where empowerment becomes erasure, where the rise of one partner demands the silence of the other, where progress is measured by who controls, not who collaborates, and where balance is mistaken for betrayal. But equality must not become a license to disrespect. It must remain a covenant of mutual honor, because when equality becomes entitlement, we do not elevate the oppressed, we simply reverse the oppression. Restoring balance does not mean reversing progress. It means refining it. It means teaching that dignity is not a competition, that leadership is not a monopoly, and that respect must flow in both directions. Faith institutions, civic educators, and legal frameworks must recalibrate. They must teach that equality is not about replacing one voice with another, but about harmonizing both. They must defend progress without permitting pride. And they must model homes where empowerment does not erase order. Because true equality is not loud, it is lasting. It does not shout over others, it stands with them. It does not demand control, it invites co-leadership. Let us restore balance, not by betraying progress, but by dignifying it. Because equality without respect is not justice. It is just noise.
Thank you, Professor. And finally, Professor, if marriage is meant to be a covenant, not a contest, how do we rebuild homes where love leads and power serves?
Thank you, Advocate. We rebuild by returning to reverence. Because marriage was never meant to be a battlefield of egos. It was meant to be a sanctuary of purpose, a covenant, not a competition, a partnership, not a power struggle. Love must lead, not just in emotion, but in architecture. It must define how we speak, how we decide, how we disagree. Because when love leads, power does not dominate, it dignifies. Power must serve, not self, but structure. The husband must lead with humility. The wife must partner with honor. I'm saying, the husband must lead with humility. The wife must partner with honor, and both must protect the covenant, not their pride. We rebuild by teaching that Headship is stewardship, not superiority. That submission is synergy, not silence. That earning more does not mean loving less. And that rising in rank must never mean falling in reverence. Faith institutions must recalibrate theology. Civic educators must reframe masculinity and femininity. Legal frameworks must protect dignity, not just rights. And families must model homes where leadership is shared and love is not lost in the pursuit of status. Because when marriage becomes a contest, the children become casualties. The children become casualties. So you can rub your ego thinking you are hating the other partner, but in reality, you are actually hating your children. Do we want that? I don't think we do. So, when love is replaced by leverage, the home becomes a house. It becomes a house without a heart. Let us rebuild, not with bricks, but with values, not with control, but with covenant, not with pride, but with purpose. Because real homes are not powered by income. They are powered by integrity. Thank you, Advocate, for having me.
Thank you, President, for reframing power not as possession, but as partnership. Your diagnosis of economic abuse within marriage reminds us that breadwinning must never become bullying, and that leadership in the home must be earned through care, not claimed through income. To our audience, if you are ready to challenge the quiet injustices that unfold behind closed doors, to restore dignity where silence once ruled, and to build marriage rooted in mutual respect, Springfield Research University invites you. Visit www.springfieldresearchuniversity.net and join the mission to transform love into leadership and partnership into public ethics. That brings us to the end of this courageous edition of Springfield Career Insights. May tonight's reflections offer clarity, conviction, and civic courage. I am Clarence, your host. Good night.
In the heart of Springfield, a new dawn breaks. With Channel Yamaswati, our future takes shape. Career insights, knowledge shared so bright. Together we rise, reaching new heights.